Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to STEM Week. Our event will be starting momentarily. Oops. Good afternoon and welcome to Mass STEM Week event on healthcare. My name is Heather Darby. I'm with the MassHire Metro North Workforce Board and the Metro North STEM Network. Our event this afternoon is Beyond Doctors and Nurses, Diverse Careers in Healthcare. This event was developed in partnership with MassHire, Metro North Workforce Board, Metro North STEM Network, and Northeast STEM Network. I do have some of my colleagues here with me who helped to develop this panel. If you'd like to introduce yourself at this point. Russ, Tess?
Right. I'm Russ Olwell from Merrimack College, and I was involved in helping get this panel started, along with my colleague, Tess, do you want to say a word about yourself?
Hi, I'm Tess Killpack from Salem State University, and Russ and I are co-coordinators of the Northeast STEM Network.
All right, thanks very much. So this event is being recorded, I'd like to say, and at this time, I would like to introduce our panelists and moderator. Panelist Della Khoury. Della holds a master's in economic and social development, a bachelor's in political science, and a bachelor's in biological science, all from UMass Lowell. In 2001, she obtained her National Pharmacy certification, becoming one of the earliest certified technician in Massachusetts. In 2010, Della moved on to instructing pharmacy technician programs. In January of this year, she took on a new opportunity, developing, directing, and instructing a brand new pharmacy technician program at Northern Essex Community College, which she leads today. Panelist Jonathan DaSilva. Jonathan is currently Senior Advisor, Workforce Initiatives at CVS Health, where he has spent the past 13 years. In his time at CVS Health, Jonathan has served in the capacity of Store Manager, Regional Learning Center Manager, and Advisor Workforce Initiatives. Jonathan has received several awards because of his dedication to his work in workforce development and training, including the Commissioner's Special Recognition Award from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Health and Human Services and the CVS Health Breakthrough Award, Human Resources. Colleen joins us, panelist Colleen Moran. Colleen serves as the Director of Workforce Integration at Mass General Brigham. Still have to remember what exactly their name is today. The largest healthcare system in Massachusetts. In this role, she connects the efforts of the workforce development and talent acquisition teams to increase successful placements for internal and external candidates with a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Colleen joined Mass General Brigham in 2001 and has over 25 years of experience in human resources and healthcare, high-tech manufacturing, and financial services. She serves on various boards and has presented nationally on disability and workforce development issues. Colleen holds a Bachelor's of Arts and Master's of Arts degrees from Boston College. Panelist Roodolph St. Pierre, Ph.D. Brew was born and raised in Haiti. He graduated with a BS in chemistry with honors from the University of Massachusetts, Boston. Recently, he earned his doctorate in chemical biology from Harvard University. Brew is currently transitioning to cancer drug discovery in biotech. Beyond his professional career, Brew co-founded STEAMid, mysteamid.org, a web app that facilitates access to STEAM internships, scholarships, and fellowships. And our moderator, Rick Leferrier, he joins us. Rick has dedicated 29 years at CVS Health. Currently, he's the Director of Workforce Initiatives. Previous to this, Rick has been the Senior Manager of Workforce Initiatives, Manager of Workforce Innovation and Talent Center, and Retail Store Leader. Rick is a passionate champion for solutions that put people to work. Rick is highly knowledgeable in the healthcare industry and has received numerous awards and honors and served on several boards, including that of MassHire Metro North Workforce Board. Thank you all for joining us today. And I will stop sharing my screen and turn this event over to Rick. Take it away.
Great. Thanks, Heather, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today. Looking forward to a great conversation with some wonderful panelists here. And I hope for those of you out there who do have questions and want to engage with the panelists, please do drop your questions or thoughts into the Q&A function if you are live with us today here on the Zoom application. So I do see that I'm joined by 3 of the 4 panelists. I do not see Della with us today. Hopefully she will be able to join at some point. But in the meantime, I do have my esteemed panelists, Rue, Colleen, and John, who will be part of the conversation here today. And where I would actually like to start the conversation is with Rue. And Rue, as the chemist here, the one who is doing work that is just extraordinary in the area of healthcare and wellness and STEM. You know, I'm curious. I'd like to start the conversation with you as the STEM professional yourself, and get to know you a little bit as well, and to understand what was it that attracted you towards becoming a chemist, and particularly in the biology area. What was it as you were growing up that sort of brought you in that direction?
Sure, definitely. So part of it stems from where I actually come from. When you're from a third world country like Haiti, the choices are, you either go to medical school or you become a civil engineer. And there is nothing else in between, because the country doesn't have the support system beyond the university to actually sort of support all those other careers. So when I immigrated to Boston, in my mind, I was going to go to medical school. So I registered to UMass Boston, taking all the proper classes. I enjoyed chemistry growing up. My uncle and my dad, respectively in Haiti, were a physics and math teacher. So I always had sort of like a strong sort of like math background coming in. So I went into chemistry, checking the boxes, right? So, the first 3 years, put my head down, did all the classes. And toward my junior year, I realized if you want to go to a competitive medical school, you sort of have to do research. And so that's where, I went into a frenzy just looking for places to do research. And thank God I was in Boston, because there were a ton of opportunities here in Boston for you to just apply to and do summer research. And that summer, I realized that medical school wasn't going to be for me. And at the time, actually, I was working in the kitchen of Brigham and Women's Hospital. And so I was exposed to the hospital for a number of years, well, at least 4 years prior to doing the research. And a light bulb just went on when I was doing the research. You get to, basically, answer questions that you ask in the lab. And that's it. I'm not sure folks realize how fortunate you get to be when you're in that world where, if you get the right mentors, you get the right environment, you're let free to answer questions you get to ask that are vetted obviously by your supervisors. But then again, that at such a young age, I remember I'm 20 and, and I can sort of like, stay in a room, answer scientific questions that are at the edge of knowledge where people aren't necessarily aware of like what the answers are going to be. And that sort of really sort of like, drove me. I did not know what specifically I wanted to do. So I sort of got exposed to a number of research opportunities prior to making a decision. So after graduating from college, for instance, I did not go to grad school directly. I actually worked in a lab here in Boston at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute for a little while and got to sample various fields until I stumbled on chemical biology. So it was a circuitous path, if you will.
Okay, I love your story. What an awesome story. That was great. Thank you for sharing that with us. And it's amazing to hear not only how much you overcame and then came here to Boston, but that you were working in the kitchen at the Brigham and and ended up
starting in senior year of high school. I did my last year of high school here in Boston. Yeah, I remember that. It was a good time. It was a really good time because I mean, understand I wanted to go to medical school, so I thought I was right at home, for a very long time.
So working at the Brigham in the kitchen wasn't an accident. You were like, I think I want to do a job in a hospital to get closer to it. Is that accurate?
This is exactly what it was. So I was in the soccer team in my high school, and a friend of mine on the soccer team was actually had a job there because her mom was a CNA or certified nurse assistant there, and he literally called me and said, "Hey, someone got fired today. Would you be interested? Because I know you want to go to medical school." And I said, "Yes, please." And I just rushed over. That's literally how I got the job, and I ended up working there for a very long time prior to doing research. Yeah.
That's fabulous. I think that's such great advice too. You kind of knew where you wanted to be. You didn't know exactly how you're going to get there, but you put yourself in a situation close to where you wanted to get to, and that really drove you, which I think that's awesome. I think that's really wonderful. I love your story. It's great. So, in order to do what you're doing right now, you've done a number of really terrific things, and you're a very accomplished professional. What did you need? What are the tools you needed? Where did you need to go with your education to be able to get to where you are now? You made this really great step in terms of, putting yourself at the Brigham. That worked out really good in terms of the world of work. But how about from an educational and skills perspective? What were those tools that you needed and sort of how did you get them?
Yeah, I mean, in hindsight, now I'm thinking about it, is I did not know the sort of career options that I wasn't aware of, if that makes any sense. Because my mom, also was a CNA, right? So she did not know what you kind of have to do to sort of like navigate that world. And I think at the time, what I needed to know was the career options that a chemistry major came with. Part of it is, the everyone else that was around me that was measuring chemistry was either going to medical school or was going to do a PhD. And at the time, UMass had a really sort of a huge push within the green chemistry sort of like environmental world. So a lot of us were just doing that, and I didn't understand that I could apply my chemistry major to a vast number of fields that I actually didn't even learn until doing my PhD at Harvard, where you could like deviate from that path altogether and go into business. I did not, this is not something I knew. I thought you have to like be a business major to go into. No, that's not true at all. Like a number of my colleagues or like classmates ended up going into the venture world. Like that blew my mind. I'm not doing that. I'm staying within like the academic world. I'm actually starting a job on November 1st here in Boston for a small biotech here in town. And but the point is, had someone else, maybe a week course, a seminar, or bring a ton of various sort of like folks in the respective careers talking about that stuff. I think that would have been super helpful early on.
Yeah, that's great. So, what do you truly love about what it is that you do? What is your connection to your work personally, and I guess how much do you love what you do? It sure seems like you love it.
I really do. So this is interesting. Everything that I've done up until now, and as always, sort of like moved through a network of mentors doing work or publishing work that I actually really appreciate and I love. So I remember when I was my first internship that I did actually was at the Broad Institute, and I purified protein for a chemist that was trying to drug a target, right? My job was going to the lab and purify that protein and see if we can assess whether that compound was having an impact on the target itself. The target was basically overexpressing cancer. If we could target it, downregulate it, then we could potentially treat cancer. But in that space, I'm not thinking about the cancer. I'm only thinking about the target the whole time. So my next job, this is again, like it feels like I'm doing this on purpose, but the next job literally was, I can purify the target. Now, can I actually, pick the drugs and screen it? Because I wasn't doing the screen initially, and I kept pursuing this like I wanted to know how to do it. And in grad school, so that sort of like propelled me forward because I had all those skill sets. Now I stepped away from the drug discovery world, and I went a step further in trying to figure out how a target actually, when implicated in cancer, how does that happen? And it's all through grad school. I'm not talking about drug. I'm only talking about a target, trying to figure out how does a mutation that target leads to the cancer that you actually observe. And in my current role that I'm about to overtake, it mirrors both of them. Like I get to do drug discovery against a small set of targets, and some of the targets people aren't necessarily, they don't understand why that target is implicated in the cancer itself, like how that mutation. So I get to see both of those worlds now that I'm basically transitioning to that world. So I think I've this is just a way to say that I've always let like my curiosity about the next things that I did not know drive my career forward, and that's sort of like how I take it forward.
So I think I know the answer to this, but is there anything about your job you don't like?
Is there anything about my job that I don't like? I'd say I know things about my job that people around me doesn't like. It's just, it never stops. There isn't, when you do research, you're answering email on Sunday night, it's 24/7 more or less. And sometimes a year or two will go by and you realize, oh, I have not taken a vacation. And then people around you, I'm married, I have in that I've had a life in that time span. I have a 5-year-old, but sometimes I have to like sort of like learn to sort of like down regulate a bit so I can take some time off.
Yeah, I think finding that balance is so important in the world of work, especially when you have a young family. And you're right, like your work is just, it's like your work is never going to stop. You are always going to be doing research to help people, and I think that's amazing and remarkable. So my last question for you, Rue, and then I'm going to bring Della in, who's joined us, and have her talk a little bit about her experience as well as a professional. What what advice would you give young people as a student or as a young professional in the world of healthcare? What advice would you give them starting out as they start their journey?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say as early as you possibly can, especially if you're here in Boston, get exposed to a ton of internships. I mean, I did, a few chemistry specific internships that I did not like. I mean, I never talk about them, but I cut them super early because I realized super early that wasn't the path for me until I stumbled onto the opportunity I actually liked. I think that is by far the most critical step. Like, you can't theorize your way through a career, or else you'll end up in that career and regret it for the rest of your life. So I feel like sometimes folks have to summer internships. If there is an environment that you think you like, email the head of that environment, say, hey, can I come in one of your meetings for a day? Can I get exposed to someone else who's interested? I can't tell you how many times that people would ask me to do that for them. So it is possible. All you have to do is ask. The worst thing you can possibly do, some people will ignore the email, but you'll be surprised. A lot of people will say yes, and just and until you find that environment that fits you, and then you just put your head down and move forward with that.
That's awesome. That's great advice, Roof. Not only for young people who are new to the world of work and the field, but also for folks who've been around a long time too. That's advice that everybody can use, and so it's wonderful. And I appreciate you spending some time sharing a little bit about you with all of us. It was great stuff there, and we'll come back to you in a little bit with any Q&A that we may get from the audience. So for now, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to bring Della in now, and Della, I just want to make sure you can hear me okay.
Hello.
There you are. Okay, welcome. It's good to see you, and thanks for jumping on with us here.
Thanks for having.
Yeah, so we're getting started with both you and Rue as the healthcare professionals, the ones who are really the closest here on the panel to doing the work in the healthcare realm. And Rue just shared a little bit with us about his time as a chemist and how he arrived there. And so, for you, I would say, the first question, and the same first question asked for Rue, is, how did you become interested in the field of pharmacy and really that pull towards becoming a pharmacy tech? What were some of the things early on that pulled you in that direction?
So it's kind of funny because when I first got involved with pharmacy, I knew nothing about pharmacy. I was in college studying pre-med, and I decided I wanted a job related to the medical field. So I went to the hospital close to my house and said, what do you have for jobs? And they said, well, the kitchen is hiring. I said, what else do you have? I explained to them that I'm in pre-med. I want something related to the medical field. And so she said, the pharmacy is hiring. And I said, pharmacy sounds good. Here's my resume. And I left. The next week they called me and I got hired. At the time, it used to be you can actually walk to a place and ask, what jobs are available. You can't do that anymore. A lot of it is online. They'll tell you go online and apply. So I was lucky that I was able to do that. The other thing is that I had won the science fair in high school. And so my picture was in the newspaper. And so that was another reason I got noticed in the pharmacy and got hired. They said I was popular. They saw me in the newspaper. So then I loved pharmacy and continued with it for 12 years while also completing my education. I did graduate. I did not end up going to medical school. And that's something I do regret, because at the time I used to tell myself, I don't want to spend 10 years studying. Well, I ended up in college for more than 10 years, but not with a medical degree.
That's great.
Yeah.
So now let's talk a little bit about that educational piece. So, what makes someone great at working in a pharmacy, what are the pieces of an individual that makes them really the right fit for pharmacy? What are the educational and skill pieces as well that a student might need in order to have a long and really successful career in pharmacy like you have?
Attention to detail is important. Manual dexterity is important. Being on time is important. Having an eye for error. Today I was lecturing my students on medication errors, and being able to prevent those from happening. We're all humans, this happens. Being good with medication calculations. And it also depends. I mean, if you're working retail, you have to have good customer service skills. You're dealing with customers. Your interaction has to be professional. If you're working in a hospital pharmacy, we don't deal with customers, but we're working with compounding. We're compounding IVs, and you really have to know aseptic technique and medication calculation to calculate the correct dose. We deal more with delivery. So it's different depending on where you're working in pharmacy, and there's many different settings. A lot of people don't know that pharmacy technicians actually compound the IVs that's hung on the patients. Yes, we make those, we add the medication to them. We're the ones that do that. And it's important to be educated and certified if you're going to work in pharmacy. Actually, there aren't a lot of requirements. There should be a lot more requirements to become a pharmacy technician because you're dealing with dangerous medications. But as we speak, the requirements are not, you know, if you're certified, you can be compounding someone's IVs. And just having a little bit of background on biology, a little bit of knowledge of medication calculation, pharmacy law and ethics, you can get certified. And I offer a course that will prepare you for the certification at Northern Essex Community College. And it's grant funded, so it's completely free for the student, including the textbook. We get scrubs for the students, the certification test. The only thing we're not paying for right now is the registration with the state registration fee. Everything else is covered. Up until March, all of the sessions right now are grant funded.
That's great, Della. You know, I might come back to that in just a moment here, thinking more about your specific program and how students can engage in that. Before we do, just, you know, you have been on you've been on two different sides of pharmacy in terms of being a part of delivering, you know, that healthcare piece and also being an educator in the pharmacy space as well. So tell me, what is it that you love about being in the midst of working in a pharmacy with a team, interacting with a team and delivering that healthcare piece when you are working in a pharmacy? And then what do you love about being an educator, teaching really what you've done for so long?
So I worked in pharmacy for a long time, and it becomes like your second family. You're with the pharmacists every day, you're seeing the same people, and you're doing your best to save lives. Because again, at the time you deliver a medication, mixing it the correct way saves a life. And I loved being involved in that. Watching out for errors, doing the best you can so for the best possible outcome for the patient. What I like now is that I'm educating the people that are going to be on the job, and hopefully they can deliver the best they can to the patient and prevent errors from happening and so on. The same way I did when I was on the job.
Yeah, and so now how about the flip side of that, Della? What is it that you didn't love about working in pharmacy, and maybe anything you don't love about doing the educational piece that you do now?
There's a lot of standing and a lot of moving around. It's nice when you're younger and it keeps you moving, and I like that piece, but Also, so that's the only thing. I mean, the hours, they're long hours and you're working hard. At the time it worked for me and it was great. What was the second piece of the question? I forgot.
Yeah, is there anything you don't love about what you're doing right now in terms of being an educator and working with students?
There's nothing I can complain about, to be honest. I love where I am. I'm lucky to be where I am, and I love everything about it.
There you go. Awesome. And so what piece of advice would you share with the students who will be listening to this or who are on today's session here? What piece of advice might you give a student who's thinking about a career in pharmacy? Or what maybe two pieces of advice would you give to a student?
Get educated, complete a training program to get certified, learn more about the field before going in. I mean, this is just the correct way of doing it, the correct order. I don't know.
Yep. No, that makes sense. So before go ahead.
I personally, like I said, worked and went to college at the same time, and I was able to do it. The hospital worked around my hours, and I also worked every weekend so that I had no weekends off, so that I could do the hours I did while completing education. And I have 3 degrees from college and plus 12 years of hospital pharmacy. And I was able to graduate without taking any loans, thanks to working in hospital pharmacy. I was able to afford college. Most people graduate, they have loans that they cannot pay off. I graduated, no loans.
That's amazing. That's an incredible accomplishment. That's wonderful, Della. It's a great piece of advice right there as well. And so before I pivot to Colleen and John, our employers here, Della, just take a minute if you want to share a little bit about your program and how maybe students interested can reach out to you.
So you can reach out to me by email. It's dkhoury@necc.mass.edu. And you can also find about the program if you go on the Northern Essex website under non-credit programs. They have it on their certified pharmacy technician. If you reach out to me, I will help you out with more information about the program and send you an application.
That's great. And Della, just for our audience, where is Northern Essex located?
So they're located in Haverhill, but the course is remote. So you could be anywhere in Massachusetts and still apply. Because it's grant funded, we're only accepting Massachusetts and Southern New Hampshire residents.
Great.
If you live somewhere else, because I've got applications from all over the country somehow. Yeah.
Great. All right, well, perfect. Well, I think that the Della's email address was just dropped into the chat, so folks have that if they need it as well. And so Della, thank you for sharing with us. If we have any questions, we'll come back to you in a little bit, but we appreciate that.
I just want to add, there's nothing to lose, everything to gain, especially that the course is completely free. It's at no cost to you.
Yes, the best kind. So great. Thanks, Della. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we'll pivot now to our employers on the panel here, both Colleen and Jonathan. I have the privilege of knowing both of them very well, and having known Colleen for many, many years as we've worked on many different things as employer partners here in the greater Boston area. And full disclosure, John is on my team. So I know him fairly well, and he's been a part of our team now for the last, is it 7 years, John? 7 years or so. So I do have a great relationship with both of these folks. And, I think we want to change kind of the conversation a little bit to really focus it around thinking about employment and what happens after you've been through your education and you've attained the skills you need to be able to do the job. And so, Colleen, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with you here on all of this. And And we've heard Della talk about hospital pharmacy, and we've certainly heard Rue talk about how he is a chemical research professional in the medical area. And so these are all pieces of things that happen in hospitals. And so many folks who work in hospitals are doctors and nurses. What else can someone do in a hospital?
That's such a good question. And the way that we look at it is that a hospital is a small city. So whatever you kind of find in a hospital, you'll find in a city. So there's security, there's restaurant sort of area, there's sort of the hotel bit of it. There's people that are staying over, maybe not because they're chosen to, but there's this, the guest sort of piece of that. There's marketing, there's finance, there's human resources, there's communications, there's IT, there's legal, it really goes on and on. So at first glance, it does seem very clinically oriented, but there's just a huge array of opportunities here. And I think we heard Rue basically stole everything that I was going to say by telling his story. But, really it just, food services, and then was able to really take that opportunity to observe the whole sort of ecosystem of the hospital and see where, what looked interesting. And it's a unique opportunity to come in and sort of get that bird's eye view when you take a role in the facility, and really you learn an awful lot. I'm not anyone with a clinical background. I'm a workforce development and human resources background, but you just really get exposed to so much, and it's so fascinating.
So Colleen, on that note, would you mind sharing with everyone what you do, what your role is, and what it is you've done over the years with all of the iterations of Mass General, and how that may be of interest to the folks that are here today?
Sure. So my background is in human resources, as I mentioned, and so I came to join what was then Partners Healthcare, and my first job there was a human resources generalist. So someone who did recruitment and employment, and then worked with the managers to make sure that anyone who's having sort of a challenge, that we could figure it out. Recruited for or brought in folks to do training, just some strategic planning, all those different kinds of pieces. I did that for 4 years. And then one of the beautiful things about being in an organization the size of Mass General Brigham is that there's a lot of opportunities without having to leave your kind of employer. So I was able to move from Mass General and then became the HR manager at Spalding, and then became HR director. And then some of the Spalding, there was a number of different small affiliates joined together to create the Spalding network. So I was very involved in that work, which was really interesting. And then I had, when my daughter was born, when she got to be about 3, I was thinking to myself, like, I'm not able to put in enough time at home, and I'm not able to put in enough time at work. So proposed a part-time position to my boss and said this would be the opportunity to do all the stuff that we always wished we had someone to focus on. So all the outreach to the various community groups, including places like MassHire, Metro North, but really at Spalding, it's everyone there has had either a life-changing illness or injury. And so what we wanted to really make sure that our staff reflects that there is opportunity for people with disabilities after that sort of dust settles, and that our employment outreach really wanted to focus on the disability community as well. So that's a lot of the work that I did there. And then next iteration, I was able to move over to the central area, and now have brought all that disability work with me as well. So doing that across the system, as well as working with other programs and bringing in more talent from different communities. But yeah, kind of a niche, and like I never grew up saying I wish I could be a workforce development professional, but here I am.
Yeah, ditto on that. But here we are, and it's fun, and
yes.
It's great that we get to do these sorts of things, which I think is always so cool. Thinking about the audience we have here today, Colleen, what would you say about what it is that Mass General might offer to someone who's listening here today, a student that maybe either is going to college, is not going to college, is on the fence, about going to college and maybe wants to engage in the world of work first, what would you say to the students out there who are thinking about what's next for them in relation to Mass General and what you do?
Sure. So, so we have a lot of opportunities for people in all different kind of places where they are in their life. So full-time, part-time, per diem, which is sort of an on-call job. If you want to sort of dabble in something, if you want to come and work for us and get the exposure like Rue described, or like Della described, being able to get into the pharmacy, that's pretty unique that she had that opportunity. But we have a number of different internal programs to help people. If you, once you're in and you say, hey, I wish I could be a nursing assistant like Rue's mom, or I wish that I could work in the pharmacy, or I wish that I could do something more in IT, or whatever it is. We have a number of different programs for to connect employees who want to stay with us and learn these skills. And so typically that's no cost, that you'd be able to participate in these programs. And then we're able to help with the placement piece at the end. That's a big piece of what I do. We also have a tuition reimbursement programs if people do want to pursue college programs or degrees or certificates or whatnot. So there's a ton that's offered. And I think a lot of young people don't really realize that. And so it's a great way, as Della said, she worked her way through school and was able to pay through school. And I would imagine that she was able to leverage some of those tuition programs where she was working, as well as being able to, earn some money to pay towards her tuition as well. So there's a lot of combination ways to get the funding to put yourself through school if that's a big barrier for you.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Colleen. I appreciate it. I'm going to bring John in here, and John, have you talk a little bit about the company that you and I both work for. And there's no doubt our company has grown dramatically over the last 5 years. Most people see us as CVS Pharmacy in the community, but there's a lot more to CVS than just our retail stores. So from your perspective, what could a student in the STEM realm possibly do coming to work for CVS Health?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So nice to see everybody. And I just wanted to thank everyone for their amazing stories. And Rue, I'm going to be the you for the employer side because I love everything about my job, not because Rick's my boss and he's moderating this panel, but because I legitimately love everything about my job. So when we talk about what kids can do in the STEM role within CVS Health, that is my favorite thing about our organization. So for me, it's all about interacting with youth and bringing opportunities to the forefront. So similar to how Colleen says, think about a hospital as a little mini city, right? I look at CVS Health as like endless opportunities for students. So depending on where you're coming from, an academic high school, coming from a vocational technical high school, when you think of STEM opportunities, it could be anything from working in our stores as a pharmacy technician. It could be anything as working in our stores as part of our front store staff, helping customers find over-the-counter products. It could be working in our call centers, helping customers with medication management and adherence. It could be working in our long-term care pharmacies, getting medications out to long-term care facilities such as nursing homes and rehabilitation centers. It could be even doing that sterile and non-sterile compounding that Della was talking about, all with one credential that you could get at a community college like Northern Essex. Then there's a whole other side of our business that's not pharmacy. You could work in IT, creating innovative healthcare technologies through our digital team. You could work in Minute Clinic. What a lot of people don't realize is CVS is the largest employer of nurses and nurse practitioners in the United States. So coming on at CVS Health and working either as a nurse, an LPN or an LVN in our Minute Clinics, or RN or nurse practitioner in our Minute Clinics or OmniCare. So, that's one segment of it. And then you look at some other lanes and you could go into Aetna. So Aetna and CVS are now one company. And so from an insurance processing side, and working with the community to make sure individuals are insured. So there's so many different avenues that you can come in. And so when people say the what are the career opportunities available to me at CVS, I always follow up with the question with, what are your career aspirations in general? What do you want to do? And let's work backwards and start with what you want to do. And then we'll talk about what we have that aligns with what you want to do.
Yeah. So John, what our team does, what Colleen does too, we're kind of unicorns.
Yeah.
In that we really straddle the line between employer and workforce professional and know so much about both, and can really act as a catalyst to do great things for our communities and for students. And what you're working on here in Massachusetts with high school partners, I may be a little bit biased, but I think it's the best programming and the best support that we have for high schools anywhere in the country, right here in Massachusetts. Would you mind sharing with these students a little bit about what you're working on with some high schools here in Massachusetts and what that looks like?
Sure. So many high schools across Massachusetts are vocational technical high schools, or offer some sort of vocational educational training. And, students who go to these high schools can do anything from learning carpentry, and these are called Chapter 74 programs, to learning auto body, to learning how to become medical assistants and CNAs. And we've really partnered with these high schools and some academic high schools like Somerville High School, and vocational high schools like Greater Lowell Tech, Blackstone Valley Tech, Assabet Valley Tech. And what we've done is we've worked with these allied health and business and marketing programs to open up doors for young men and women across the state to come in and look at career opportunities at CVS. So maybe you're studying to become a medical assistant. You can come and do your co-op job at CVS. So on your senior year of high school, instead of going to school every week, 1 week you would do your academics, and the opposite week you would get to go on co-op inside of a CVS facility. And not only are these students, impacting our workforce, they're building and working towards licensing in a trade. So they're getting transferable credentials that can follow them throughout their career, or throughout wherever their career takes them, right? We've had many students, we've been doing this program for about 5 years. We've had many students come in who maybe had aspirations to become a nurse practitioner or a doctor or pre-med, or were thinking about going pre-med, who pivoted and became pharmacists, right? So they went to another direction, and they went to Mass College of Pharmacy. And similar to like Colleen, we have scholarships and tuition reimbursement available. So every student who comes through these types of programs is eligible for tuition reimbursement to help them along their journey, flexible schedules, and the fact that no matter where you go in this country, the odds of a CVS facility being near you are high. So you might decide, well, I live in Lawrence, Massachusetts, but I really am tired of the winters, and I want to go to the University of Miami, right? I'm just done with snow. I just want beaches, sand, and warm weather. Well, guess what? There's a bunch of CVSs in Miami. There's CVSs all over the country. So not only can you start with us in high school, you can transfer, continue to work, continue to get the benefits, and continue to pursue your career aspiration wherever life takes you.
That's great. And so my last question for you, John, we've heard from each of our other three panelists some very interesting pathways on their career to where they are today. One of the themes that I'm taking from this is that everyone started somewhere and ended up somewhere different, very uniquely. And I think it's really terrific to kind of share that, because it's so relatable. And we all, had dreams and aspirations as young people, and ended up taking a journey to where we are today. Would you mind just briefly sharing, you're a graduate of a vocational technical high school yourself, and you're here today from a career path. Would you mind sharing with everyone just quickly what your career path is?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I never woke, similar to Colleen, I never just said, hey, I'm going to be a workforce professional one day, For me, it was all about just wanting to engage with my community, right? So I worked at CVS Health. It was my second job. I've only had two jobs my whole life, Costco and CVS. And when I worked at CVS, I was a store manager, and I really ingrained in the community. So English is my second language. I speak Portuguese fluently. So when I first started working at CVS, I worked in a store with a predominantly Portuguese speaking community so that I could translate and help and support. And I really started doing things in the community, leveraging the organization. And as I moved forward, I continued to do that. And I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to go into district management and just pursue a career, like, you know, just a streamlined career. And then I met Rick. And Rick told me all about working in workforce development. And as Rick will attest, I had the best interview where I insulted him accidentally during the interview, and he'll never let me live that down, but I still got the job. And then I learned about, you know, being able to work in the community and being able to work with people with disabilities, work with youth, work with veterans, work with mature workers, and really populations that don't need a handout, but a hand up, and really impact the community. So that's how I got to where I am. And my main aspiration has always just been helping people. And that's not a shameless plug to our company tagline. That's always been something I wanted to do.
I can attest to the interview situation. It did indeed happen, but one of the things that I can also attest to is that we also have a lot of fun. We laugh a lot, we have a lot of fun, we do great work, and genuinely love what we do, and it's great to be around folks who do the same on this panel as well. So John, I appreciate that, thank you. So I'm going to pause here. I'm going to just check with Tess to see if there's any questions that are out there that anyone has asked of our panelists.
Sorry, one moment. There we go. Hi. So we don't have any questions in the Q&A, but I was wondering if there were a couple really great specific resources were mentioned, or sort of places where students might be able to find out about specific opportunities for jobs or shadowing or sort of professional exposure in the various fields and various companies. And I was wondering if folks would be, if they have a quick link, could put them in the Q&A or in the chat, and I can share them.
Definitely, I'm happy to drop. So I last year, over a couple past years, I have made this database of summer internships, many of which I applied for. I'm happy to say, like, every single summer research opportunities across the universities, the research institute here in Massachusetts are in that database. So if you're in high school or college and you get exposed to, you're a biology major, or you're either want to go to medical school or do a PhD, these programs will be of interest to you. Definitely. I'll put the link in the chat box.
That would be incredible. Thank you. And there was some mention from both Colleen and John about finding opportunities at your companies. Is there sort of a one-stop link that we could at least get folks started at to explore those?
So I just popped a link into the chat, and it's our Workforce Initiatives Jobs landing page. And so that really talks about opportunities. It breaks down youth. So the youth one is called the My CVS Journey Pathways to Healthcare Careers. That's our youth portal. So when you get to that landing page, you'll be able to click on that, and that'll get you connected with us.
Quite as fancy as CVS with a landing page. So I just put my email address in the chat, and I'm happy to help match up anybody who's looking for their next step.
Fantastic, thank you. And I had a question, if we have time to consider it, would that be okay?
Go for it. Absolutely.
I thank you all for sharing your stories and for sharing the opportunities that that exist in your workplaces and in your realms, that I think are often, as the title of this panel alludes to, they're often, not the most prominent or I guess opportunities that folks don't necessarily know are available in the healthcare field, sort of beyond being a hands-on medical provider. So I guess I was wondering, what skill sets in your experiences do you see in young people in particular that are valuable for your industry that they might not realize they possess, or that they have as an asset that they could contribute to your field or to your company?
Do you want to go first, Colleen, or do you want me to go first?
I was going to say digital literacy is, I think that's, the current, group coming up is more digitally literate than any other group that's existed before. And so I think that feels very secondhand to them and maybe don't realize the value of what that is. That's, I think, really some great skills that people can just build from.
Yeah, and I agree. I was literally going to say that as well. Digital literacy. Many of the students I work come with new innovative approaches because of what they've had to overcome, especially in the last 18 months when it comes to this virtual environments that everyone's had to be in, right? We had a couple of interns in New Hampshire from local high schools, and I think I learned more about the intern from working remote than she learned about working at CVS. She was amazing. I'd say another thing that youth bring, which they don't realize that they bring, is they bring a fresh perspective, right? Youth is coming with this perspective, especially for a first job or a second job, somebody who hasn't worked much. They're bringing a unique perspective to work that's invaluable. They come with a unique perspective and unique approach. They're doing things differently than I'm doing, than Rick's doing, than Colleen's doing, Rue, Della, anybody who's on this call, because they've had different lives and they've had different experiences. And so sometimes a new set of eyes and a fresh young perspective is refreshing in the workplace.
Great, thanks.
Okay. So we're just about at time here. Russ, I think I'm going to toss it to you to wrap up.
I was just going to say thank you to everyone on our panel. This was an amazing range of experiences, and I think gave people out there some great leads and some great opportunities. And thanks especially to the guests, without whom we wouldn't have a panel. But feel free to follow up with anyone, including Tess and myself, and have a good rest of your STEM week. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.